statistically speaking, the smartest person in any given meeting is usually the most misunderstood.
Well, absolutely.
Right. They often have, the most complex ideas, the deepest insights, but the absolute lowest rate of adoption. And, I mean, why is that? It's because we fundamentally misunderstand what communication actually is.
Right, you really do.
Have you ever been in that position where you have this brilliant, fully formed idea in your head, but the moment you open your mouth, it comes out as just like a tangled mess?
Yeah, that is so frustrating.
Or maybe you've had a great solution that nobody in the room seemed to grasp, so you just gave up and stopped trying. I mean, have you ever stayed completely silent during a high-stakes conversation because you were just too afraid of being judged, even though you knew you had the right answer?
It is an incredibly common, isolating experience. And it's not just a minor annoyance, It's a structural failure. You feel trapped inside your own mind, watching other people get credit for lesser ideas simply because they knew how to package them.
Exactly. Well, welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're analyzing the Victory with Ash Master Knowledge Base, specifically their foundation series on communication and confidence.
This is a great one.
It really is. Our mission today is to decode this framework, not as some feel-good self-help seminar, but as a high-level operational system for human behavior. We're going to help you move from just passively consuming information to actually implementing it.
And specifically focusing on what this material argues is the ultimate life skill, which is communication.
Right.
And we should establish right away that we are going to look at the actual mechanisms behind why we fail to communicate. This isn't about just being told that you should speak better.
Right. Nobody needs another lecture on that.
Exactly. It's about giving you the psychological and tactical toolkit to actually do it. We are looking at how you transform raw abstract knowledge into practical, everyday action that literally alters the trajectory of your career, your business, and, your personal relationships.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can get into the tactical communication skills, we really have to look at the operational error happening in the background. Like, why do we struggle to learn and apply new skills in the first place?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. We buy the books, we read the articles, we know we need to speak up more, but our baseline behavior just never changes.
Well, that is the core diagnosis of the Victory with Ash philosophy. And it's a really crucial paradigm shift. They argue that most people do not fail because they lack intelligence. And they don't fail because they lack opportunity either. People fail because they are drowning in information overload, operating without clear direction, and lacking accountability. Growth is rarely an information problem. It's almost exclusively an implementation problem.
That distinction is so important. I mean, it's like owning a world-class gym membership but never actually lifting a weight.
Exactly.
Knowing how the treadmill works doesn't make you fit. The information doesn't change anything until it's implemented.
Precisely. And that philosophy comes directly from Ash Muffare's background. As someone who built highly successful, large-scale organizations, he recognized that you can hand someone all the strategic business information in the world, but if they lack the foundational systems to execute it, they will just stagnate.
Right.
He prioritized foundational principles, things like faith, family, integrity, and personal responsibility, because those are the operating systems that allow high-level information to actually run.
And a massive part of that operating system, according to the sources, is your environment. You can't expect to install new behavioral software in a vacuum.
No, you really can't.
The text emphasizes that we need supportive communities and mentorship to shorten the learning curve. Otherwise, we're just out there making the same avoidable errors over and over.
Because environment dictates baseline behavior. I mean, if you surround yourself with people who communicate poorly, who use jargon to hide their insecurities, and who avoid difficult conversations, your brain calibrates to that as normal.
It becomes your default.
Right. But if you immerse yourself in a growth-focused environment, your nervous system calibrates to a much higher standard of interaction.
So, if this lack of implementation is the disease, the source material offers a very specific structural cure. It's called the Victory Framework.
Yes.
So mechanically speaking, how does this framework actually bridge the gap between knowing what to do and doing it?
The framework is built on 3 foundational pillars, which are rise, reset, and refocus.
Let's look at rise first. The way this is framed isn't just motivational, it's a structural decision. Rising begins with a conscious choice to stop settling.
Hmm.
It is taking absolute radical responsibility for your current situation. It's choosing action over excuses. You literally cannot change your behavioral outputs until you decide to rise above your current environmental limitations.
Which is the necessary prerequisite for the second pillar, which is reset. A reset is a deliberate realignment. It means actively removing the limiting beliefs and destructive habits that are hoarding your cognitive bandwidth.
Right.
You have to create a fresh starting point.
See, I have to push back on this, though, because resetting sounds great on paper, but human beings are wired for efficiency, right? Which means we are wired to repeat what we know.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't just hit a delete button on a decade of bad communication habits. So how does this framework suggest we actually execute a reset without just, slipping back into our old ways the second we get stressed?
Well, that is the exact trap most people fall into.
Right.
A reset is not a delete button. It's an active reallocation of resources. Think about your brain like a computer's RAM.
Okay.
If you have 20 heavy applications running in the background, so anxiety about what people think, the habit of interrupting others, the fear of judgment, your system is maxed out. You can't open a new heavy application like active listening because you simply don't have the processing power left.
Oh, wow. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, a reset is force quitting those background anxieties.
Yeah.
You have to actively dismantle the old habits to free up the space necessary for new habits to take root.
You're clearing the RAM. But creating that mental space is useless if you just immediately fill it back up with the same old distractions. Which brings us to the third pillar, refocus.
Exactly.
Modern life is essentially an economy designed to fracture our attention. Refocusing is the active, continuous process of directing your newly freed bandwidth strictly toward what matters.
Yeah, because the rule of neuroplasticity, which the framework leans heavily into, is simple. Where attention goes, results follow. If your attention is scattered across minor distractions, your results will be scattered. You have to aim that bandwidth intentionally.
So we have the operational sequence: rise, reset, refocus. Now let's actually run the program. The sources point to the very first skill you should apply this framework to, the master key for everything else, which is communication.
Yes, and to do this effectively, we have to dismantle a massive societal myth about what communication actually is.
Okay, let's unpack this. This is the big myth from episode 10 of the Foundation series. We are conditioned to believe that being a good communicator means being a good talker.
Right, like dominating the room.
Exactly. We think it means having the most expansive vocabulary or never pausing, but the text is explicit here. Communication is absolutely not about speaking more. It is entirely about creating understanding.
The source material provides a really fascinating equation to quantify this. It states that effective communication is the sum of 5 specific elements.
What are they?
It's clarity, plus listening, plus confidence, plus empathy, plus intentionality.
To bring this equation to life, there's a brilliant story in the text about 2 professionals presenting the exact same idea to a team. Let's look at the mechanics of why one succeeds.
Oh, this is a great example.
Right. So Professional A gets up and speaks at lightning speed. They use dense industry jargon. They throw 50 data points at the wall, and they never once check the room to see if anyone is actually following along.
And physiologically, what Professional A is doing is maximizing the cognitive load of their audience. They are overwhelming the working memory of the listeners, which causes their brains to literally stop processing new information.
They just tune out. Then Professional B gets up with the exact same idea. But Professional B starts with the main point right up front. They explain, in simple terms, why this idea solves a problem for the people in the room. They use a relatable analogy. They pause to listen to questions, and they respond without getting defensive.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of why Professional B wins. Professional B did not have a higher IQ or a better idea.
No.
They simply had a superior method of transferring what they knew into the minds of their audience. They understood that knowledge is useless if you can't build a stable psychological bridge for that knowledge to travel across.
Building a bridge for knowledge transfer, that is the perfect way to frame it. So how do we physically build that bridge? The text gives us 6 principles of effective communication.
Let's go through them.
Let's start with principle 1. Clarity before complexity. This basically means giving your main point first.
The psychology here is vital. If you make people dig for the treasure, they will eventually just drop the shovel. By giving the conclusion first, you provide the listener's brain with a framework. Every detail you provide after that has a place to attach, drastically reducing their cognitive load.
Which pairs perfectly with principle 2. Listen to understand. Most of us think listening is just, sitting quietly, vibrating with energy while we wait for our turn to speak.
Which isn't listening at all, it's just delayed broadcasting. True listening is an active process of pattern recognition. You are listening to the words yes, but also the tone, the physical posture, and the unspoken context.
I want to ask you, the listener, to evaluate this right now. Think about the last argument or debate you had. Were you actually listening to the other person's reality, or were you just loading up your next counter argument in your head? Because if you are just preparing your defense, you aren't communicating.
And that leads right into the next set. Let's look at principle 3, which is confidence comes from preparation.
Right. The text says confidence isn't arrogance, it's knowing your subject and preparing your points. But let me push back on this. What happens in the real world?
What do you mean?
Well, what if you're put on the spot? The CEO asks you a question you weren't expecting, your mind goes blank, and you literally cannot prepare. Where does the confidence come from then?
This is where these principles act as a fail-safe system. If you are put on the spot and you haven't prepared your data, you pivot immediately to principle 4. Empathy creates connection.
Oh, interesting.
You can always prepare to understand their perspective. Instead of freezing, you ask, what specific problem are we trying to solve with this question?
That buys you time.
Exactly. By asking a genuine, empathetic question, you instantly lower your own cortisol levels, you create a connection, and you buy your brain the processing time it needs to formulate an intelligent response.
That is brilliant. You use empathy to buy processing time. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because principle 5 is use simple language. We have this bizarre insecurity where we think using complex, multisyllabic words makes us sound authoritative.
We all do it.
But the text argues the exact opposite. Complex language doesn't prove you're an expert. It actually proves you don't understand the topic deeply enough to simplify it.
It's the ultimate test of mastery. If you cannot explain a concept to a 5-year-old, you do not truly understand its underlying mechanics. Complexity is often just a mask for confusion.
That completely reframes how we should look at jargon.
Yeah.
And that racks up with principle 6. Communicate with intention.
Right. Before you walk into any room, you have to define the outcome. You have to ask, what do I want from this, and what does the other person need from this?
Because if you don't define the intention, the conversation will just default to whatever emotional state you happen to be in, which is usually defensive or distracted.
Exactly.
So we have the mechanics of the 6 principles, but as we said at the start, information without implementation is entirely useless.
Yes, it is.
The source material outlines a literal 7-step checklist for your very next important conversation. It's a sequence.
Let's walk through it. First, you identify your outcome. Second, you write down just 3 main points.
Keep it tight. Then third, consciously slow down your speaking pace, which signals safety to your own nervous system.
Fourth, you ask a thoughtful question.
And fifth is listening completely without interrupting.
Yes. Sixth, verbally confirm you understand their point. And seventh, reflect on what worked afterward.
It's basically an algorithm for successful interaction. But to really rewrite your behavioral software, the source material introduces a 7-day communication challenge.
This isn't just a random list of tasks, by the way. It's a progressive sequence designed to build the specific cognitive muscles we've been discussing.
Let's look at how this progression actually works. Day 1 is your reconnaissance phase, active listening. For one whole day, in one conversation, you don't offer solutions, you just mirror back what you hear.
Which trains you to stop loading up your responses.
Exactly.
That prepares you for day 2, simplifying an idea. You force yourself to explain a complex topic without using any jargon. This is a compression test for your own understanding.
Right. And by day 3, you move to asking better questions. So instead of giving advice when someone comes to you with a problem, you ask 3 thoughtful questions to guide them to their own solution.
Notice how days 1 through 3 are entirely about controlling your impulse to dominate the conversation. You are building discipline.
So by day 4, when the challenge asks you to practice confident speaking, focusing on your pace, your posture, and your clarity, you are doing it from a grounded place, not a frantic one.
Day 5 shifts the focus to psychological safety, which is giving genuine appreciation. You find something specific, someone did well, and you tell them. This trains your brain to look for positive patterns, not just threats.
Which is the exact emotional regulation you need for day 6. Having an important conversation.
This is the heavy lifter.
We all have that one conversation we've been actively avoiding because it feels physically uncomfortable. Day 6 is where you finally apply the empathy, the clarity, and the pacing you've been practicing all week to face that conflict head on.
And finally, day 7 is the review phase.
Yeah.
You audit your communication growth. If we connect this to the bigger picture, completing a sequence like this doesn't just teach you new tricks. It creates a fundamental identity shift.
So what does this all mean for you? It means you move from being a silent observer to being highly expressive. You move from feeling nervous and reactive to feeling prepared and proactive.
You transition from just talking at people to actually communicating with them.
You move from arguing to win to seeking to understand.
You transition from begging to be heard to actively creating understanding. You evolve from a follower into a confident contributor.
Mastering this framework, rise, reset, refocus, and applying it to the mechanics of communication transforms everything. I mean, it is the underlying skill that dictates how you negotiate a salary, how you lead a team, how you close a sale, and how you deepen a relationship.
It really is.
It is the difference between your best ideas staying locked inside your head and those ideas actually changing the world around you.
And the reality is, communication is a skill. It is not an inherent genetic trait. Skills require practice, and you don't have to build these systems alone.
Right. If you are listening to this and you want to continue this work, if you want to join the Victory with Ash community, use the link available in the description.
Highly recommend it.
Inside Victory with Ash, you can continue developing practical communication, leadership, business, technology, and personal growth skills through structured learning, real mentorship, and a community that actually elevates your environmental baseline.
There is a quote from the source text that perfectly encapsulates the ultimate goal of everything we've explored today. It says, "Communication becomes powerful when people don't just hear your words, they understand your intention."
Your voice has value. Your ideas have value. Your experiences have value. Learn to communicate them with clarity, confidence, empathy, and purpose. Remember the operational sequence: rise, reset, refocus.
And I want to leave you with one final provocative question to ponder today. If true communication is fundamentally about revealing your intentions, take a hard look at your current habits. Are your baseline behaviors like talking way too fast when you're anxious, using overly complex words to sound smart, or staying completely silent out of fear? Are those habits actually hiding your true intentions from the very people who need to hear them most?
Wow, that is a profound question to sit with. Thank you for patiently listening to this deep dive. I appreciate your time, your attention, and your commitment to becoming a better version of yourself. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep moving forward.